Hey guys, it's Faye from Solar Flow, and I am back with another video. Today's topic is a deep dive behind the veil energy read on Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. So if this sounds like an interesting topic to you, please stick around, and if not, I'll catch you in another video. So first and foremost, before we get into it, no, I am not done with my true crime kick. I just felt like I wanted to kind of balance the energy a little bit after my last video being a heavier, dense topic on Ted Bundy. I thought, let's go for something light and fluffy. And with it came a lot of unexpected information. So if you're curious about the dynamics between Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, if you're curious about what is going on in their connection to the royal family, I will be discussing all of that. And I'm also going to be exploring what their previous lives have to do with the current expression of who they are today. So let's dive right in. All right, before I dive in, even though I just said let's dive in, as an American, maybe you're like me, and as an American, the British royal family seems almost more like a curiosity. So there's no particular attachment to them one way or another way, right? They're not our ruling monarch. We don't live in England. It's just more kind of like a curiosity to us. And one could say that our celebrities are our version of royalty. So as an American, I'm not particularly attached to the royal family in one way, shape, or form. I don't have any particular feelings pro or against them. So anything that I'm going to share in relationship to Harry is not one that has any level of bias. Also, I'm going to be very candid, and I'm going to say that when Meghan first came on the scene, I was really jazzed up. I thought she was going to be great for the British royal family. I thought she was going to perhaps modernize it in one way, shape, or form. I was a big fan early on. And then through the way in which she has shown up on the world stage, I have come to have a different opinion of her. However, the information that I'm going to share herein is not anything that is of a personal nature. It's only what was shown to me. So I do not have any bias one way or another against or for Prince Harry or Meghan Markle. But I am also going to say that to that end, what did come in was very interesting and very wild. And it's also going to give you an understanding on some level of the way that information comes into me and how it actually pertains to and connects to the subject that I'm going to be exploring, which is in this case, Harry and Meghan. Okay, so with that in mind, let's go ahead. We're going to dive in. I have my notebook. I will probably be referring to it many, many times because there's a lot of information that came in and I don't ever want to leave anything out. Okay, so I'm first going to discuss Harry, then I'm going to discuss Meghan. Now, Harry, the way that his energy came into me, or one could more say, because the way his energy came into me, I'm going to reserve for the end. I'm going to say that when I was first connecting to his energy and I was first looking at it, it came in as being fractured. Because part of the work that I do as an energy reader is when I'm working with a client, for example, I'll look at their energetic body. And the purpose in looking at the energetic body is to see, are there any areas of misalignment? Are there any areas where there is an incongruency of the energy? Is there a fracture of some kind? And very much I initially saw with Harry that he has an energy fracture. And he has an energetic wound in his energetic body, and it is specifically located at his neck. And the way that it was shown to me was, imagine that a head was not fully attached to the neck, and therefore it was kind of like laying akimbo and off to one side, and it was really only connected at the one side, and it was not connected to both sides. So it was like lolling about. And when the energy comes in that way, it is shown to me that the person has an energetic fracture. And when there's an energetic fracture like that, what will happen is the person will leak their life force energy. Now, what does that mean, first of all? It means that he is not fully connected, Harry is not fully connected from his head to his body. And what that's also going to show up as is somebody that is not fully embodied in themselves because they're not fully integrated and connected. It's also going to show up as somebody who is perhaps a little bit flighty, or they might be like missing certain cues. Because again, some of the way in which we receive cues is through our body. It can come through as, the hair on your neck standing up. It can come through as having like a pit in your stomach or a sense of uneasiness in your stomach. So he may actually miss certain things that his body is trying to tell him because of that. And again, it's because there is an inconsistency in the way in which the energy is traveling through his body, specifically as connected to his body and his mind. Now, another way that that's going to show up is that the person, for lack of a better way of putting it, might appear to be a little bit like dull or like not the sharpest tool in the shed. And again, it's because there is a massive fracture in their energy, and it is at the location of the head. So the head is not working in concert with the body. And in addition to that, the head is not working in concert to the social circumstances or social cues that the body is actually putting out there, but the mind is not properly receiving it. So he is very much somebody that is energetically fractured. And without the understanding or knowledge about that, of how to call parts of himself back or how to even heal that, because yes, it can be healed, but without that, he's going to continue to walk on, and he's going to continue to be an energetically fractured and energetically compromised individual as well. Now, this is leading to him feeling lost in his life, and it's because he is losing his own actual energy. So that's why I think, he can kind of have like this like flighty kind of nature to him. And it's literally because he is flighty. He is energetically compromised and he is energetically flighty because of that. Now, what also came in, because I was like, well, this is very, very interesting, and it seems to be a particularly notable way that it's coming in to show me like this massive fracture and delineation in his energetic body connected to his neck. So as I was looking into that again, I was like, well, let's see why this is. And this is interesting. It was actually shown to me that Prince Harry, this is not his first incarnation in royalty. And the way that it came in, it was shown to me Anne Boleyn, but not that he was Anne Boleyn. It came in Anne Boleyn, but the other one. And I said, what's the other one? And they said the other wife that was beheaded. But I had to go and I had to look this up after I was done receiving the information, because I didn't know the name of the other wives. So who was Anne Boleyn and who was the other one? So Anne Boleyn was the second wife of King Henry VIII. And I personally only know the first three names of the wives because they are probably the most well-known ones. So his first wife was Catherine of Aragon. His second wife was Anne Boleyn, and his third wife was Jane Seymour. And I probably remember all of this from the show that was on many years ago called The Tudors. And the Tudors kind of like followed the life of Henry VIII, who is not fictitious. He was a very, very real king. He had 6 wives. So it came in to show me Anne Boleyn, because that's the way my mind was going to understand it, as one of the wives that was beheaded, because Anne Boleyn was beheaded. But it said the other one because he was not Anne Boleyn in a previous incarnation. So when I stopped the meditation and I looked into it, I Googled it, and I saw that her name was Catherine Howard. And what happened to Catherine Howard? She was his 5th wife. They were married for a period of 2 years. And why she was no longer his wife was because there was ample evidence that she was actually having an affair with someone that was more age appropriate for her. And that came to light, and she was actually beheaded because of it. Now, such a traumatic instance or event that happens to a soul is going to be particularly notable to that soul, because it's a trauma, and it's a level of attachment to the missed opportunity of what that life would have been like if not for the very, very traumatic end of her life when she was just a teenager. I think she was met by the king when she was a lady in waiting to the wife before her. And I believe that she was like 15. I don't know. I think she was maybe even like beheaded at like 17 or something like that. So a teenager, right? And that soul had the incomplete experience of what it was like to be a royal. And here's the thing, this is not to say that like, woe is me, she had an incomplete experience, she didn't get to finish it out, so her soul came back as Prince Harry. No, that's not exactly the way that it works. It's more to say that it was perhaps her soul's mission in that incarnation as a Catherine Howard, where she was meant to be a royal. Maybe there wasn't even meant to be a sixth wife. Maybe she was meant to be the last of his wives, of Henry VIII's eighth wives. And she was going to live on into a proper old age, and she was going to be a royal through all of that life. But we all have free will. In all of our incarnations, we all have free will. So whereas that might have been her soul contract, that she was going to be a royal, but through her free will, she made different choices that had circumvented that and led to an incomplete soul's contract in that lifetime. And that is why the soul came back in this lifetime as a Prince Harry, because it was to finish the soul contract that it had, which was to be a royal. But it was in a different way, because in that lifetime, she was only a royal for a couple of years as a teenager. So the way that the soul came back to have the full experience of being a royal was to be a royal from birth, so that there would be no incomplete experience, because it was getting the, one could say, the full Monty experience of what it was to be a royal, because it came back from birth to be a royal. Okay? So it came in to have the full experience. But this is interesting. Through the experience of it being a royal from birth, and through the process of that, and through all of the pomp and circusry, the soul has come to realize that it is not as wonderful as it thought it was to be. So this soul, who was then Catherine Howard, but is now Prince Harry, is actually closing out one of the soul contracts that it has had to experience in its incarnations here on Earth. So this is just to kind of give you like an understanding of the way that these things can sometimes work. It's finishing it out. So this soul will no longer go on to be a royal in any of its future incarnations that are coming through. Now, because of the particularly traumatic way in which Catherine Howard met her demise, it was very traumatic, and it was at a young age, there is a residual component in the soul essence of Harry that is showing up here in this incarnation as a royal. Because it's almost like it's triggering the remembrance that the soul has to its last time when it was a royal. So that's why Prince Harry can sometimes, in addition to this energetic fracture that it has, where he already is can have the tendency to flightiness and dalliances, that's going to additionally come through because of the soul essence in the way that it was manifested as a Catherine Howard, who was a flighty teenager at the time that she became a royal. So it's compounding the energetic way in which the life is experiencing. Let me rephrase that. It is compounding the energetic way in which the soul is expressing itself as Prince Harry, because he has that energetic fracturing to begin with, And then in addition to that, it is a triggering of the soul's essence to when it was last a royal as a Catherine Howard. And that is why he is prone to being, let's say, a little flighty, making bad decisions when he really probably should know better. And he will busy himself with dalliances because of that. And what was also shown to me is that while, for example, he complains about his so-called identity of being a spare in the royal family, in reality, he would hate to have the level of responsibility of what it would entail to actually be next in line for the monarch. Simply put, he's not cut out for it. It's not his character or his nature to fulfill that level of responsibility and that kind of duty of what it would actually mean to be the next in line. And that is again because he is, first of all, leaking his life force energy through the fracturing in his energetic body. And he's not fully even himself. Therefore, he's not fully able to show up as somebody that would have a level of commitment that would require to him being the next in line as the monarch. And yes, so since his incarnation as Catherine Howard, which ended so tragically, there's a soul impression that was left on him, which is prone to flightiness and immaturity. And that's the leftovers of the soul essence from Catherine Howard that have been triggered inside of him. Now, what I did see was that he, in addition to this being his second life, second incarnation as a royal, he has actually also had many, many previous incarnations as a soldier. So what has brought him the most joy and satisfaction in this incarnation as Prince Harry was his royal duty. And that is because just like he had this soul's essence triggering to Catherine Howard being a royal, because he had so many of these incarnations as a soldier, and I saw many, 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 many different lifetimes, going back to, first of all, like Roman time, World War I, World War II, a bunch of battles. I'm not even, that familiar with all of history, but a bunch of other battles in between as well, where he was a soldier. So that too was a soul's remembrance on his part that when he came into this incarnation, it really, really resonated with him to be a soldier. So that has brought him the most joy and satisfaction in this life as Prince Harry. But in addition to that, because he's had so many lifetimes where he was a soldier, there's a level of, one could almost say, an incomplete feeling within himself, because he knows what it was like to be a soldier with a real purpose and a real mission and a real drive, which, because he is a royal, he didn't get to have the full experience of this in his lifetime. He was always so protected. So there's a real recognition and understanding that brought him satisfaction as being it, but in addition to that, it was coupled with a sense of longing and a feeling of incompleteness, which he himself doesn't even understand. But again, that's because he had all of those lifetimes being the soldier where he was not protected. So one could say he had the full experience of what it was like, probably even dying in many of those lifetimes as a soldier. And again, it's a soul's remembrance that has left this sense of incomplete in his own life. Now, in the way that he looks at William, it was shown to me through the lyrics of a song, "Now You're Just Somebody That I Used to Know." Because while for a period his life was running tandem to William's life, they're now on both very, very different paths. So imagine, if you will, it's two people that are on at a train station. One person steps onto a train at the left, another person steps onto a train on the right. And for a while, both of those trains are going to be running parallel to one another. But then at some point, they're going to go in different directions. So because of the choices that he has made in this lifetime, where Harry has gotten onto the train on the left, while it was, again, running parallel to William's for some period, he is now on a different path altogether. And William has been saddled with more of the sense of the responsibility of this feeling of having to be the next monarch, where he has had to grow into and really mature with this level of responsibility. So they are very much on two diverging paths, where when Harry looks at William, he very much just is somebody that he used to know, because he doesn't recognize the man that William has grown to be and the man that William had to grow to be. And when I was looking at Harry's energetic blueprint, it was actually shown to me as a kite flying in the wind. And it is most happy to be free and unencumbered by the heavy responsibility of the royal family. And in addition to that, I'm also just going to say, I'm going to just very, very briefly touch upon like what is kind of being said in his book, Spare. And there's two notable things that came through about that. One I'm going to say for the end as it relates to Meghan Markle. The other one is actually something that was shown to me about Prince Harry, which is, and this is going to sound maybe a little bit nebulous and confusing. I promise I will do a video at some point in the future on the royals, like a real deep dive of the British royal family as a whole. However, that day is not today, and that video is not this video. So what I'm going to say next is going to probably, it could be a little bit frustrating. I promise I'll get to it. But for anyone who's watching this who knows, you can comment down below what I might be referring to. And that can probably illuminate some of the answers for some of the other people that are watching this. But there's two actual bloodlines in the royal family. One of them is the royal bloodline itself, the royal lineage. And the other one is the one that I'm not going to speak of today, but I'll speak of it at a different day. Now, what was very much shown to me is that Harry is not Prince Charles's son. And if you want to understand more about that, you can go back and watch the video. I'll link it down below on Princess Diana. Whereas who was actually having to father the next generation is not, or was not, Prince Charles. It was actually somebody else in the monarchy. But Harry was a product not of that union. Harry was a product of an affair that Princess Diana actually had with somebody. Now, Harry grew up very much understanding and being aware of that. And he has a little bit of a resentment about that because he's not actually real, one could say, in the understanding in the three-dimensional of the lineage that is actual royalty. And there's a little bit of resentment on his part because of that. And I think that very much is going to come through in a lot of the things that he does now, and specifically in what he has written about in his book, Spare. So that's just to touch upon that. And again, I'm going to touch upon another component of why he was sharing what he was sharing in the book as that pertains to Meghan. Okay? Now, before we dive into Meghan, I'm going to ask that if you're enjoying this video so far, please go ahead and smash that like button below. And yes, I'm using the word smash because I actually had seen someone else in a video saying, like, you have to be really, really enthusiastic about it. Like, if you want people to click the like button, you have to be like, really, you have to say smash, be enthusiastic. So let's see if it works. Smash that like button down below. And if you're enjoying this content and you'd like to learn more and get more of my videos, go ahead and smash that subscribe button as well. Okay, so now we're gonna leave all that smashing behind and let's get to Meghan. Okay, so the way that Meghan's energy was shown to me is one that is a classic and true energy vampire. And I will link the video that I had done in the past on energy vampires if you want to learn more about that. That will be linked down below with the Princess Diana video. But for anyone who's not clear on what an energy vampire actually is, so imagine, if you will, the understanding that you have of what a vampire is through films, TV, and books. So there's these vampires, and their sustenance and their fuel to survive is blood. Now, that's their 3D survival, right? They need, the way we need food and water as humans, or just water, they need blood to survive. Now, an energy vampire, because it's energetic and it's not in the physical realm, their sustenance is the energy of other people. And because Harry is an energetic geyser, because of this fracturing in his energetic field, for one like Meghan, just like a vampire would be titillated by the scent of an actual human's blood, energetically, she was titillated by the energy that Harry was gushing. So, very, very interesting pairing, too. You have someone that is energetically losing their life force energy. And then you have somebody that is their soul survival, is siphoning off the energy of another person. And he is as easy gets, because she didn't have to create any of the energetic fractures to siphon his energy off of him. He already has it free flowing. So she hit the energetic jackpot of a source for an energy vampire. Now, also the way that she was shown to me energetically, and this is very much how it pertains to this lifetime as Meghan. But after I discuss this, I'm also, just like I talked about the previous lifetime of Harry, I'm also going to talk about the previous lifetime that she has had as well, that has contributed to her showing up in the way that she shows up. Because we are very, very multifaceted as human beings. We're not one note, not even questionable, consciously questionable characters such as a Meghan, okay? Now, the way in which she was shown to me energetically, it's vivid. It was shown to me as a huge, overweight, gelatinous monster. But the monster is wearing like a sensible looking Chanel suit. But because it's so overweight, like imagine like there's rolls of the neck coming out on top of the jacket, and like the belly is protruding out from underneath the jacket, and it's like wobbling on these two enormous like legs, and it's at a party. Okay, so first have this visual image of this gelatinous monster tucked in to, or stuffed in would be a better way of looking at it, stuffed into a suit. And it's at a party. And it's walking around, and it's walking by every table, and it's just taking like handfuls of cake and just shoving it into its mouth. And it's like taking all the candies and everything and just shoving it in. It's just piling it in. And then it's like walking up to all the other guests, and it's like pulling the necklaces, the pearl necklaces, off of the guests, and like stuffing the pearl necklaces into its Chanel bag. There's pearls flying everywhere. It's complete chaos and complete mayhem. It's a completely uncouth monster, and people are just like standing there like, what the heck? What just happened? What did that? And then they're understanding that this is not a monster that actually crashed the party. This is a monster that was invited to the party. And keep in mind, I really, really loved Meghan when she came onto the scene. So it's not like I had a bias against her. This is truly what came through when I was looking into her. Okay? That's why I had to do like that whole little speech at the beginning, because I didn't have any bias against her. Okay, I'm trying to be as completely impartial and just sticking to the information that I received. So this is who she is energetically. Okay, now I'm going to continue to explore that, because again, we're multifaceted. Now, because there is this monster that is taking without any level of discernment, it's going to take from everywhere and anything without any level of discernment, and that's going to lead to it picking up a lot of bad juju. Okay, so that's the first thing to understand. Now, in this incarnation as Meghan, so she's always been a little bit manipulative. And again, this is to kind of touch upon like the nature versus nurture that I had spoken about in my video on Ted Bundy. We're all a kind of a combination of nature and nurture in every incarnation that we're in. But then as you start to understand the spirit world and our previous incarnations, we are an accumulation of all of those lifetimes as well. Okay, because she really is her too. You know, no one is completely good, no one is completely bad. We all have like varying shades, like 100,000 different shades of gray in between the black and the white. Okay, so I just want to put that out there. So as Meghan Markle, she had no sense of accountability at home. So she was spoiled silly by her father. She was the so-called good child, whereas his two other kids, I think he had a son and a daughter from a previous marriage. His older kids, the son and daughter, were the bad kids. She was the good kid. So she never really grew up with any level of accountability. And she could do no wrong in her father's eyes. And that led to her never learning consequences of her actions. And that also led to her not understanding the concept of boundaries. Okay. And it was shown to me in the way in which she sees the world, which very much connects to a previous incarnation, which I will discuss next. But the way in which she sees the world is that everything is a series of ladders. So imagine, if you will, you are looking at a dollhouse that has been cut into two. So you can see the inner workings of the dollhouse, but there's no flight of stairs connecting one floor to another. The way that they're all connected is through ladders. And the way that she sees the world is once she has climbed one ladder and gotten to the next level, the level that she is on, it completely disappears and falls away. So she has to constantly be running to look for the next ladder to climb up that ladder. And then when she gets to that next level, that floor also falls away. So she energetically is somebody that is constantly ungrounded. She is constantly on the move, and she has to feel like as if she is constantly climbing. But the climbing that she is doing is of a social kind. That is the way that it is manifesting in the three-dimensional world, that she is a social climber. But the reason that she is such a social climber is connected to a previous incarnation that she herself had. And the way that this was shown to me was a scene in the Joy Luck Club, that movie, The Joy Luck Club. And why am I mentioning this? Because again, I want to share with you that sometimes the way the information comes in is it comes in a way that is going to make sense to me. So what is a reference that I have that my mind can understand it? So just like with Prince Harry, it was shown to me as Anne Boleyn, because that was one of the wives of Henry VIII that I would understand was beheaded, but I was told the other one. So this too it was coming in a way that my mind would understand it based on something that I had been previously exposed to. And in this case, it was a scene from the movie The Joy Luck Club. And the scene that it was referencing was in the movie The Joy Luck Club, there's the main character, and she comes to understand that her mother, prior to having her, had had two babies that she had to leave because she was escaping like a war-torn country where there was no food. And she was hoping that her babies would be found by somebody that could give them a better life. Because if her babies stayed with her, they would surely just meet a very, very tragic end because there was no food. It wasn't even an assurance that this woman was going to survive. So if she wasn't going to survive, there was really no guarantee that her babies would survive. So this, the reason that this came in as the reference was because Meghan, in one of her previous incarnations, also was a very, very traumatizing one for her. So it had those energetic, traumatizing ties that bind that triggered something in her in this lifetime of never having enough, having to leave her village with nothing. The sense of having to go, to keep going, to keep walking, to have nothing, and to continuously start over. So that is why she sees the world as a series of ladders where the floor is always falling out from underneath her, where she feels like she will never ever have enough. And it is because a triggering of a previous life in which she literally had nothing. But the way that that all shows up in this incarnation as Meghan is that she is trying to fill within herself a hole that was left behind in this previous incarnation, a black hole that can never ever be filled by any amount of stuff that she has, because the wounding that the soul experienced in that life was too deep, one could say, too severe. That again, without this understanding of the way in which our previous incarnations can affect us, without calling back parts of ourselves, without clearing all of those wounds, will continue to carry through from lifetime to lifetime. So there is no amount in her, or there is no amount of anything that she will receive that will ever fill up that sense of lack that she has, because it's not in this lifetime, it's in a previous lifetime. So that's why you can be wondering, like, I don't understand. She was a princess, or I think she's actually a duchess. She was a duchess. She lived in a castle. How was that not enough for her? And it's not enough for her because it is the wounds of a previous lifetime. There is a hole energetically inside of her that cannot be filled by stuff, because it is not a lack of stuff. It's a lack of healing in herself. Just like Harry has the wound energetically in himself that is causing him to be a energetic geyser, leaking all of his energy. It's the same thing. It's not a physical wounding, it's an energetic wounding. So that is what brought these two together, right? She could sense the energetic leaking on his part, targeted him, and because of this energetic blueprint in her life, will continue to be a social climber at any and all cost. And she is going to continue to siphon and drink off of Harry's energy. Now, what was also shown to me, for anyone who's curious about how this may end between these two, that she will not leave him if and only if until the point where he is completely broke. Because she does understand, while she has this energetic wounding, she does understand that this is, first of all, it's an energetic jackpot, but this is also somebody that has given her the most amount of, one could say, gravitas. Because they had those titles. She was a duchess, he was a dutch, he was actually even a prince. And there's a lot of the residual kind of energetic benefits that come off of that. But she will stay, this is my prediction anyway, she will stay with him even if he is not functional and even if he is completely broken, because she's going to have enough attention around her because of the fact of who he was, which was a prince, because of the fact that she was a duchess. And only if at the point they are completely broke, that is when she will leave him. Because again, she sees the world as a never-ending playing field of where the floor will always fall out from under her, and she always has to look for the next ladder to climb. But this is socially. And this is a pretty high social ladder that she's actually landed. So she will stay with him up until the point that there is no actual money left. But to that end, what was also shown to me is that she will continue to push Harry to do more and more ridiculous things in the pursuit of money. And it is without any care or concern for him and his well-being. So it is my understanding that there's a number of very, very questionable things that are in his book Spare, which I do believe, based on what I saw, was encouraged by her to put it there. Because she's like, you're getting this big payday. You really have to make it worth the publisher's, worth the payday that you were given by the publisher. So you got to like stuff it to the gills with information. So he is going to continue to have to prostitute himself energetically and continue to make a fool out of himself energetically, because he's going to have to always be pursuing the financial payday to keep her happy. Okay. So she's going to continue to encourage him to do more and more ridiculous things. And it's because she sees him as an ATM card. You've heard me say that before with Brian Laundrie, looking at Gabby Petito. And she will leave him only when that ATM card completely runs out. Now, what was also shown to me, and I know that for some people it's kind of questionable if the kids are real or not, or if they're hers anyway, but was shown to me in the way in which she views her kids is not as people, but as accessories, and that she will swap them out interchangeably as if they're a handbag. So whatever handbag, i.e. child, most matches her outfit of that day, or what best matches whatever visual representation she's trying to put forth of herself in any particular day or time, is the one that she's going to use. So she is intelligently, cunningly, one could say, actually choosing to not, I want to actually reframe it. It's not that she is choosing to not share them. She is actually withholding the children, but it is not because she was actually looking out for their well-being or their privacy, but it's only because she's going to bring them out at a selective time when she most needs to put forth a particular aspect of her so-called self. So it's very much like done intentionally with this cunning strategy in mind, that I'm only going to bring them forth when I need them for a strategic purpose. And it's because they're going to reflect something in a part of me. And that it's a son and a daughter is also very strategic as well, which is that they're interchangeable depending on what she needs to bring forth within herself. Okay. Now, the last thing that I actually picked up here, which was very, very notable and interesting. And I picked this up when I was meditating prior to doing this video. It was the last thing that came in, which was, if anybody is wondering, how did she infiltrate the royal family? This is going to explain why. And yes, I'm going to use the word infiltrate. Because again, this is not a monster that crashed the party. This is a monster that was invited into the party, right? Now, the royal family was already in a completely disempowered state prior to her coming along. Because if they would have been in their full power, she would not have been invited to this party. And what that means is that, did you, not you, but can anyone not believe that they did not vet her, that they did not know her history, that they did not know everything about her prior to her joining the royal family? Of course they did. They do that for everybody that joins the royal family. So it's not to say that they were somehow blindsided by her. And it's also not to say that if she was not going to be acceptable for Harry, they would have let it be known to Harry in no uncertain terms that this is somebody that he could not marry. So all of those things did not happen because the royal family, as we understand it, is not actually fully operational in the way that we might perceive it to be. The royal family has been energetically disassembled to the point where they did not have the capacity or ability, one could say, to fully vet her, even though they did. But it was also that she was allowed to join the royal family specifically for the purposes of what she is doing at this time. So there's a number of different things that are going on, right? There's what's going on with her in her current energetic blueprint as Meghan. There's the woundings that she has from previous lifetimes that are influencing the way that she shows up as Meghan. There's whatever is going on with Harry from his incarnation as Harry and his previous incarnations and his woundings. And then there is also the way in which she was even allowed to join the family, which is she was only allowed to join the family because it is in a disempowered state. So she is coming in almost as a wrecking ball to allow certain things to play out on the world stage, in which we are getting a different glimpse into the inner working of the royal family for the purpose of trying to break it down in people's way that they are viewing it. So for anyone who is, for example, like a pro monarchy kind of a person, they might instantly hate Meghan because she is casting aspirations onto the character and nature of the royal family. That's by design. And it is because the royal family is already disempowered. So this is the beginning step of what is going to continue to happen hereafter. That is again, look at it like dominoes. Her being allowed to join the royal family was the first domino to knock down that is going to be a long line of other continuous dominoes that are going to continue to fall, that is going to reveal, or at the very least challenge, the way in which the royal family is perceived by people around the world. Because I do believe, as I have said in many of my other videos as well, all of the old structures have to fall down. And one of the best ways to allow it to fall down is from the inside. And her infiltration of the royal family was allowed because this is one of the first dominoes that is going to fall in the coming down of the royal family. So I hope, as always, that you guys have enjoyed this video and have found it to be interesting and thought-provoking. Take what resonates and leave the rest behind. And as always, until next time, stay in the high vibration.